Alright, doing a quick mic check. Test, 1, 2, 3. Test, 1, 2, 3. Check, check, check. Test, 1, 2, 3. Check, check. And testing, 1, 2, 3. Check, check. Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in. For those of you that are already tuned in, I said I would get this thing started at 10 p.m. CST, so I am going to honor that commitment, and for those of you here on time, thank you, and hopefully we'll get stragglers as time goes on. So just to start off, introduction of myself. My name's Nick, and I'm with a board game content creation group called Talking Cardboard. You'll see our YouTube URL at the bottom of the screen here throughout the unboxing. So definitely check that out if you want to see more just board game related content that covers all types of board games. Obviously, in this unboxing is Rome Total War, the board game, but we do videos on all sorts of games on our channel. We also have other types of content creation, so check out this QR code, which I did check, and it should work, and it takes you to our link tree, which shows you the links for our Discord page, our podcast page, and our TikToks. I've been starting to try to do board game TikToks, so check all that stuff out. But without further ado, in terms of what you're here for today, that's Rome Total War, the board game. And I want to immediately say right off the bat, this is a prototype copy. I'll probably be saying this 10 more times, if not more than that, throughout this unboxing, to make clear that things could definitely change from here on out. I just want to show that, actually take use of my side camera. Good opportunity for my side camera over here. It actually even says, gameplay image to come here, just to illustrate the fact that you are indeed looking at a prototype copy of the game. So I don't know exactly what will change from here on out, but just know that things could definitely change from what you're about to see. Real quick too, before I actually start the unboxing of this awesome looking game. What's Rome Total War? What is this actual pledge project all about? So for that, I just want to quick jump over to the Rome Total War Game Found page. So if you like what you see and you aren't a backer already, definitely check out the Total War Rome Game Found page. I have a link in the description of this YouTube unboxing, but also of course just Google search Rome Total War Game Found, and this should bring you right to the link. As you can see, the pledge manager is still active. My understanding is it's going to be active until the end of the year, and and the initial price for the game isn't cheap by any means. I think the initial pledge, let me jump down to the pledge levels, is gosh, my eyes are bad. I'm looking at sorry, here, let me expand this. So the initial pledge level is actually, sorry, I gotta retract that. I was impressed by how inexpensive the initial pledge was, which was only $82. But just like every crowdfunding project, there's additional levels that you're going to be very tempted to increase your pledge level to. For example, this Deluxe Emperor pledge, yeah, it's $217, but you get a lot for your money. And I should mention also Rome Total War, or I guess it's Total War Rome, but I say Rome Total War, is based on a PC title of the same name that was released in 2004. And before Total War Rome, there was actually Total War Shogun, or Shogun Total War is what I would have called it, which was released, I think, in maybe the late 90s, if not then early 2000s. And that was a ancient Japan-themed grand strategy RTS PC game where you were in charge of various feudal, I don't know exactly what they would have, factions, I'll say, of ancient Japan trying to take over territory, and you had these huge armies of units that you would battle with, and I just thought it was the coolest game ever. But a few years go by, Rome Total War gets announced. And that was the first PC game I ever pre-ordered because I had such an awesome experience with Shogun Total War that I knew Rome Total War was going to be fantastic as well. And there was a huge increase in graphics from the sprites that were used in that original game and then the 3D renderings of units that was used in the original Rome Total War game. So that's some background on Total War Rome, the PC game. Obviously, this video is about the board game. It's spiritual successor, if you will. Now, in terms of what comes with this pledge, again, I'm only showing off these, I guess what would be considered the Centurion pledge level, but there's a lot more content that you could add to your pledge if you decide to back this game. The core game comes with 4 factions. I think the 4 factions are listed right here on the Game Found page: Rome, Barbarians, Carthage, and Greece. And what I appreciate is that they're all asymmetric in terms of their tech trees, from what I understand, in their units, just like the PC game. And then you have additional pledge levels which add more factions. There's a pledge level that adds this battle play expansion, which increases kind of the strategic depth of the battles in Total War Rome, the board game. So, and that's only $17. Personally, when I read through everything, I feel like this is kind of a must. But obviously, do your make your own decisions if you think that battle play expansion is necessary or not. And then you have the Emperor expansion, which I think is kind of the Chrome add-on expansion for the board game. So, in short, check out the Game Found page at your own leisure when you have the time to do that. So with that, let me circle back to the actual unboxing, and please feel free to send messages in the YouTube chat or Kick chat if you're on Kick, which I don't think probably many people use yet, and I'm trying to be a trailblazer and start hopefully being one of the first people to use the Kick platform for streaming. But yeah, definitely putting messages and questions in the chat box, and I'll try to get to them as we go on here. So, to the actual opening of the box, and before I even do that, just to kind of show you the box here in detail, I have a feeling that this is going to change in terms of its appearance, just because the back at least has a gameplay image to come. But the game is for 1 to 4 players. Says playtime's 180 minutes and ages 10 and up. Although I think on the actual web page or the crowdfunding page for the game it says 14 plus. So take that for what it's worth. But let's go ahead and open this up. I use my nail as a razor, which probably means it's a good time to start trimming my nails. And I will say the quality of the box is very nice. Again, prototype, will that last for the production copies? Who knows? But it's a very good quality box material in terms of its thickness. It's of course a little hard to illustrate that visually, but you can take my word for that. And I'll put this off to the side here for the time being. And immediately we have the rulebook. And I'll take a minute to page through the rulebook here. It's pretty thick. 59 pages total. I'll go over to my side cam here to give a more up close and personal view. Not sure if I need the lighting of that camera for this part, so I'll turn that off. But yeah, 59 pages of fun here. Concept. Pages aren't too heavy in text to start with. Design philosophy. Let's see here. The 4 major factions, as already talked about, the game comes with the core game, the basic pledge comes with Carthage, Rome, Greece, and the barbarian tribes as your 4 main factions. Key components. And again, this being a prototype board game, I would have to imagine these rules are prototype as well. So, but of course I have the rulebook here, so I want to show it to you guys. And I think there are PDF versions of the rulebook on the Game Found page. So if you're like Nick, you're going way too fast through this rulebook, I can't read everything, check out that Game Found page and look at those PDF rulebooks that are available there, and of course take your time. I see examples for a lot of the rules. That's always very nice to see. Yeah, so I mean, there's 59 pages. I don't want to take too much more time going through everything. It gives examples of combat, which is nice. I could imagine that can get a little tricky. A lot of examples on combat, so that's good. Spending phase. So, yeah, I mean, I haven't read through the rulebook in detail yet to say, so I can't really say everything is in the rulebook that you need to play the game. But it's a lot of pages, and that also, that goes to show the crunchiness of this game. This is not, I haven't really said this yet, but hopefully it's obvious this is not a light game by any means. It's a heavy strategy war game, so that might turn some people off, but that's to be expected if you know anything about the PC game, because PC game was also very heavy, a lot of, you're doing a lot of different things, so it makes sense the board game is that way. Otherwise, it wouldn't really be paying respect to its inspiration. So now I'm opening up what appears to be the various faction boards, and let me see if I like using the proper terminology for things. So these are there are faction boards. I guessed correctly. So again. Core game, basic pledge comes with the 4 factions: Rome, Carthage, Barbarians, and Greece. So let's take a look at these under the microscope. So here we have Rome, and what's over purchases over here. So as you can see, let me zoom in even closer on the purchases. This is like the fun part of the PC game, was buying all your different units and stuff. So just like the PC game, you have quite the variety of different units to purchase in the board game, and different costs. Just like the PC game, based on the effectiveness of the unit you're buying. And then of course you have all the classic siege equipment like the Scorpio, ballistae. I'm not a Roman expert, so I apologize. But I appreciate playing the PC game. Onager, and then there's also construction options in the board game, so you can build roads, markets, barracks, defensive walling, and then an ancient wonder, it looks like. And then in terms of developments, just like in the PC game, it looks like you don't maybe have access to every single option to build right away, and you maybe have to work your way through these tech trees in order to actually have access to the various build options, which makes sense. That's just like the PC game. So in addition then to the tech tree here and then the purchase menu, there's spots down below to illustrate the various armies that you have. Looks like on the side here you have an area for action cards, reserve cards, and then navies here. You manage on your left to manage your navies. So that's the Rome card. I won't spend too much time on these other 3, but I do want to just illustrate that they're different, right? So the purchase options for Carthage here is very different than Rome. You have the different types of units that you would probably be familiar with from the PC game if you've played that before, that were unique to Carthage. And then, of course, then a different development track to go along with their unique purchase menu. No different, of course, as you can imagine, for Greece. And then, of course, as you can imagine, no different for the barbarians. So already you can see the level of asymmetry in Rome Total War, the board game, which is great to see. And let's move on to some more stuff in the box, which looks like the next is the map itself. And this is pretty big, so I'm going to take the time to actually unfold this so we can see it in its full glory. And I'll say right now again, the board quality is solid in terms of its thickness. In terms of like artwork, I would say artwork wise, nothing super special. You can probably see for yourself that the texturing of the map is, I would say, more on the simple side of the spectrum. Nothing crazy in terms of artwork here. There's iconography that hopefully is visible from your computer screens. It looks like each area has a certain number of trees and mountains, which I assume exemplify the battle terrain of that area if you were to pursue combat in that region. So more mountains, I assume, means more mountainous, and more forest, more foresty, which I think means when you're doing a battle, you have then terrain cards that align to the symbols of that area in the map, which I really appreciate, because that's a huge part of the PC game. When you're doing battles, you actually, and I thought that was cool in the PC game, when you're fighting in an area that's forested from the strategic map, the zoomed in battle also has forest, and that makes sense. And I appreciated that level of detail in the PC game, and that has been carried over into the board game here, as can be seen by this map. The other thing I would like to point out is the areas for each region look relatively large, which is one of my frustrations with a lot of dudes on the map game, is when you have a small area and tons of units in that you're trying to squeeze into a small area. I know that's already alleviated in Rome Total War, because armies are not a bunch of actual physical pieces of guys, but an army is represented by a single general, and the units in the army are represented then by cards that you have off to the side, which is, again, very similar to the PC game, where you're only moving around a single figure on the strategic map, but the army itself that general is representing is a bunch of different units when you click on them. So that's also taken into account here in the board game. On the side here we have a victory point track, so I will assume then the victory conditions of Rome Total War, the board game, is based on victory points. And then it shows the phases in order. So you start with initiative phase, taxation phase, agent phase, campaign phase, and spending phase. And the only other aspect of the map that I'm not actually immediately clear about is some regions have square colors underneath them. And I believe these align to the combat dice. So jumping ahead a little bit here, but there are these chunky dice that come with the game that are used for combat. They're different colors, which represent, I think, the effectiveness of the dice. So some colors are going to be more deadly than others. So I don't know if that means these areas of the map automatically come with those colored dice for the defender, but that's one other aspect that I noticed that sticks out to me on this board. So that's enough board talk. Although I am from Talking Cardboard, so it only makes sense that I spend a decent amount of time talking about cardboard. We'll move on to the coins. So the coins in the base box are just these. Put them under the microscope. You can see are just cardboard tokens, nothing special. The denarii, I guess, is what they technically are, right? Because I think from the PC game, that's what the currency you were using was called. So I'll say these are the denarii used in the board game. Looks like there's just 2 denominations that I can see on the board. I will guess they're either 1s and 3s or 1s and 5s. I'm sure the rules... Well, I said earlier, I don't want to be a hypocrite. I said I'm all about making sure I use the right terms. So, in the rules it says, 1x shared set of 200 coins representing gold, with small, medium, and large coins for 1, 5, and 10 gold, respectively. Oh yeah, so there's one more size. So it's called gold according to the rulebook, not denarii. Oops. Back to the side cam. That bigger one's this 3rd size. A little surprised that one's not then even a 3rd different color, because the small and large, of course, look very similar in color. But again, it's prototype, so I don't know if that might change in the future. So, but that's... I don't think there's much more to say. Oops, sorry guys. I don't know if there's much more to say about the coin tokens. And if you're like, oh, I wish they were real coins, remember there is that Shishi Poo Poo pledge level, which let me before I was gonna say I thought there was a pledge level that comes with metal coins. Okay, so it's an add-on. So if you really are one of those people that wants that clinkety clankety clang sound when you're buying something, there's a pledge level for that. So, all right, let's move on to the next component of the game. Well, I have it out here. Let's talk about the dice. So, you know, I'm a big fan of rolling dice in board games. It's a very Ameritrashy thing to do. I love me Ameritrash. And what better way to show off the dice than with a talking cardboard dice tray? So, these dice are thick, are chunky. You can't, I mean, it's, I don't know dimension-wise off the top of my head, but they're not, they're definitely bigger than your regular 6-sided die. And it looks like the symbols include a few different symbols. It's not just hits and misses, that's for sure. Let me take us over to the microscope. So the black dice just has an S, and then the arrow and sword. Yellow is skull, arrow and sword, and an S. Red is skull, arrow and sword, and an S, and looks like every side on the red has something to offer. Talked about black already, so the last then is white, which just is arrow and sword, and then the S. In terms of, and I should say it's maybe hard to, of course, see under the microscope here, but the detail in the dice is it's etched in there, which is really cool. It's not just like a sticker or something, so it's not gonna, well, the ink I guess theoretically could wear off, but the image, you know, the indentation shouldn't wear off, so that's pretty cool. I'm trying to think if that's normal, or maybe that's like how all board game dice are and I'm just noticing this for the first time, but anyway, so that's the dice that come with the game, and they're chunky, and I'm looking forward to rolling them, and hopefully lots of them, because that hopefully means I have a big army that I'm trying to use. So, alright, I pulled out some minis out of the box, and I'm going to assume that the minis, yes, okay, so I'll go over to the side camera here in a second. But these look like they represent the leaders of the... I'm going to turn that light back on. Now that I think I'm done with the glossy gloss. So, these are the minis for the army generals of the faction. So this is the barbarian generals, and you can see they each are identified by Roman numerals on their base. So this would represent the general for your 3rd army. This represents your general for, I guess, your 5th army. And that's important because on your faction sheet, you have the different armies at the bottom, which is where you store the cards of the soldiers that correspond to your various armies. Now, there's only 4 armies spots on the faction sheet, so I'm not sure then the reasoning for having 5 figures or 5 different army generals. Yeah, so I'll go to autofocus. I don't really like autofocus, but maybe it's better in this scenario. Just a second. So I like... Yeah, now it's auto-focusing. Problem is when I autofocus, then it gets my hands in there too. But if I'm very careful, then it autofocuses nicely. So yeah, now you can clearly see that Roman numeral in the base. It is, to be honest, difficult to see otherwise. If you painted these minis, then of course you could make those numerals pop out. So anyway, there's 5 for the barbarians. I'll show what the other ones look like. So here we have the what I believe would be the Roman generals, and the paint on these looks will be a little more glossy, so I apologize for the shininess. I can now turn the light off actually just to see if that kind of helps. And I'm only showing one of them because unfortunately, and Simon the designer did warn me that this might happen, that some of these minis would come damaged. So unfortunately, we have some dead Roman generals. But this is a prototype, so clearly it's not relevant for final commercial production quality, I should say. And honestly, those feel like they're made out of a different plastic material that maybe was a little more brittle than the barbarians. All right, let's move on to, I want to say Greece. Yeah, they kind of look like hoplites. Maybe I just don't need as much light, but some light's probably better than nothing. All right. So here is, and the dark color on the dark background is not helping. This is actually purple. Now I feel like I need more light again. Gosh. Doing this live, guys. I'm doing it live. All right. So these are the purple Greece generals. Same concept. There's 5 of them. These ones all came in intact. Simon did also say for these ones, the spears come a little bent, which that I see in so many board games when you have minis that. Sorry for the focusing there. See, I have stuff in the background, so it's focusing on that, I think. That's not, to me, super uncommon for board games where you have minis with spears. It's kind of impossible to prevent that. And I think Simon said you put them in warm water and that straightens the spears out. And also, again, this is a prototype copy, so I'm not sure if they will try to change the model or the models for the final copy for Greece. But those are the minis for Greece, the generals. And then let's move on to last, but certainly not least. Did I... No, I don't think I did anything wrong. Yeah, so Carthage is last year. And Carthage also has... Come on, focus, focus. Alright. Carthage is kind of a yellow color. Focus. Maybe one hand's better. But Carthage... there we go. Carthage also has guys with spears and... again, a little on the crooked side. These ones are definitely thicker spears than the than Greece, so they're not quite as bent overall. But come on, like focusing is. I definitely do want to get better at having good camera control focus. I think it's just hard when you have different things at different levels. And the camera to continue focusing, and yeah, anyway. So that is the miniatures. Oh, the big miniatures. So there are more miniatures. I just am laughing because the scale of the miniatures is just so different. So these I think are I want to say the advisor miniatures. So a big part of Rome Total War, the PC game, which was thematic, is if you wanted to do any kind of I think it was pretty much any kind of diplomatic actions with any other faction, you needed to send over a diplomat. You couldn't just like click on a faction and say I want to open negotiations. I think you physically did have to send a diplomat over to them, and that could take a couple turns depending on how far away the faction was. So you have that represented here in the board game as well, with these mini diplomats, diplomat figures for each faction, and holding a scroll. It looks like with we'll say it's a declaration of war. That's these diplomats are coming with. Now I don't know. Functionally, mechanically, how exactly they work in the board game. I'd have to read the rules to figure that out, and sorry as I'm trying to display them properly here for you guys. I'll try to hold one up close to the camera. But, come on, gotta move everything out of the way. So you can, maybe red's not the best color one to show up. They're all the same models, by the way, so keep that in mind for these. The army generals were different molds. The diplomat molds are all the same. So you see one, you've seen them all, and they're just way smaller. Like I said, they're just way smaller than the generals. Not that there's anything wrong with that. I think when it comes to a board space perspective, that I appreciate that, because otherwise those areas on the board are going to fill up. So you get 3 of those for each faction. It looks like out of the box. Oh yes, and then of course we finally have. You're probably like wondering, well, what about navies? What about navies? Yes, those are represented in the board game as well. And in Rome Total War, the PC game, naval combat was very streamlined. It wasn't until the Total War, gosh, what was it called? 1750, the kind of Revolutionary War era Total War, where you actually were able to fight sea battles directly instead of have them simulated, which was really cool. But those battles were also kind of challenging, to say the least. Anyway, so Rome Total War, the board game, also comes with, I want to say, triremes and biremes and galleys. I'm not an ancient history expert, so I'm using them probably incorrectly. The molds for the ships are all identical as well. It looks like you get, one of each. Yeah, the piece. Yep. So they all actually are the same. Unfortunately, the mast of this one did snap off in delivery. Again, prototype here. So don't worry about that. And the purple one also lost a mast. We'll say it's a combat veteran Navy ship. So, and just like the generals, my understanding is you have these figures that represent multiple ships on the board, depending on how many cards you have for each Navy figure. So that's the Navy miniatures. And let's move on to what I'm going to assume are structures here. Yep. I lost my mouse. For a second, I fell. I need to be able to click now and then things. Let me make sure. I just want to take a quick. Yeah. Okay, so right now what we're looking at. Let me set this back here for a sec. Right now what we're looking at. Oops. Jeez, Nick. I'm clumsy. I believe these are the structures that you can build for your faction. So there's cylinders. Kind of almost look like giant. They're cylinders, but they because of the color, they look like that food you get for mice or gerbils. I don't know. I don't know what rodent food I'm thinking of, but I remember seeing these perfect cylinders that you get for. And then there's these. Oh, these must be wonders. So I'm pausing right here because I want to see if the rules clarify exactly what the different shapes are. So we'll go over to the microscope. So we have the pyramids. Oops, the pyramids aren't. There we go. So pyramids. I don't know if the rules. Well, I have to actually read through the rules because the unfortunately the component description doesn't clarify what the shapes are specifically 1-to-1, and I'm checking to see if elsewhere in the rulebook the exact definition for each type of structure is defined. But I then also must assume that maybe the shapes are still being determined, the final production quality shapes are still being determined. So I'm not gonna hold us up on that. There's, in addition then to the pyramids and the cylinders and the long ones, we have squares and then finally we have what kind of look like homes. So again, I know you're probably getting sick of me. Take a shot every time I say it. I'm gonna take one right now myself. It's a prototype, so I don't want to have us assume these are the final production quality pieces for the different structures in the game, since right now they're rather abstracted. What I just wanted to show is that Daniel put in the comments, sometimes I think a nice cardboard counter is more appealing than minis like these ones. And yes, I've come to really appreciate cardboard counters over the years, because my problem with minis. Sorry, I'm taking a little bit of a sidetrack here, but my problem with minis is that whenever I get minis, I feel like I need to paint them, and I get this painting anxiety building up where it's like, oh my gosh, I can't play that game. I haven't painted those minis. Can't play that game because I haven't painted those minis yet, and it's like then I don't play any of my games because I haven't painted those minis yet, and games cost more typically with minis. Honestly speaking, I'm happy with the approach this game has taken so far. Yes, there are some minis represented by these tokens for the structures and then the generals and navy, but all the units are just cards. And I think with good artwork, obviously I haven't gotten to the units yet, so I'll show those in a second. Because alternatively, having a ton of little figurines all over the board is just a mess waiting to happen. I know that's kind of the fun part maybe for Axis and Allies, having a bunch of miniatures on the board. So I can see both sides of that debate, but at the same time, I definitely am fine with cardboard tokens with good artwork rather than an unpainted miniature. So enough of that side derail, but let's get back to what I wanted to show you. In the rules, these again, prototype rules, this is all that it says when it comes to the wooden pieces I was just showing. 16 markets, 16 barracks, 16 walls, 4 ancient wonders, and 24 roads. So the pyramids definitely were supposed to represent the 4 ancient wonders, I guess, because there was only 4 of them. But I'm not exactly sure which ones maybe the squares were the roads. I don't want to get caught up on that. So let's move on to some other stuff in the box. We'll do these colored gems. So I'm not immediately sure what the colored gems are, but they're colorful and they're gemmy. They're kind of like they're just plastic. They're not glass. And all appear to be the exact same size. So I can't sense if that's sarcasm from the Talking Cardboard comment or actual excitement. So the gems represent, I believe, what's called unrest markers, used to show where rioting and trouble exists. Oh, sorry. I have to back up. Oh, no. Okay. So I think it's the black, which almost are more translucent. So these ones represent the unrest markers. Unrest, big part of Rome Total War, the PC game. If you take over a area and you don't quell, that's replace the total. Yeah, okay. Thanks, Brian. Yeah, I'm just realizing this now. So the black ones, the black markers of this shape are the unrest markers, I believe. And that's a big part of the PC game, because when you take over a new territory, the local population generally isn't happy that they were just taken over. And so for however many turns, there was unrest. And that sometimes meant that it would eventually be rioting, or just that new area wasn't as happy as you would like it to be. And that's thematic, of course, I think. And that's represented here in the board game, I believe, with these unrest markers. And I'm guessing there's ways that you have to mitigate the unrest markers. The unrest markers probably aren't a good thing to have to deal with. So that's cool. Then, aside from the kind of black translucent markers, there's markers for each faction. I'll just try to separate them out. So we have red, this is yellow, red for Rome, yellow for Carthage, purple for Greece, green for Barbarian, and those represent when you control new regions. So the rulebook does say there's faction markers, 12 with black surrounding edges to show your original home region, and 18 to show control of new regions. Certainly, these probably are used to show control of new regions that you take over. I'm not exactly sure then if they got rid of the 12 with black surrounding edges. because these are, of course, all plastic colored tokens. But that's what these are supposed to represent. Basically, markers to identify new territories you're taking control of. So I won't belabor that point anymore. And let's get into... I'm making such a big mess here. It's like a Tom Vassal component drop on my table. Let's start looking at all these cards. So, okay, yeah. So there's... Let's open up these action cards. In the game, I won't say confidently that your turn is limited by the action cards that you have in your hand. But these are called action cards, so it's quite possible that is how the game works, that you, on your turn, you play one of your available action cards. I'm trying to quickly... There are 55 action cards in the deck. Each card is multi-purpose. The top half has two choices for the agent phase. The bottom half has a special event that can be played in the phases indicated on the card. When an action card is played to trigger an event, it is referred to below as an event card. When you will draw cards from this deck, and you can then use one of the actions shown on each card when you play it. This is a shared deck that all factions use. Before play, shuffle it and place it to the side of the board. Each player may hold a maximum of 5 action cards initially, but this can grow up to 7 as their faction develops. So I don't think, in fact, you... I guess it's important for that agent. In the agent phase of the game, maybe, is when you're using the action cards. So anyway, I'd have to do a little more research on that, but let's look at what these action cards look like. So, one side, actions, flip them around. So I'll kind of sort these by... We have determined troops. That's a little fuzzy. Come on. Troops cards themselves. Troops excel themselves. Add 1 green die to 1 combat. So this is one that boosts your combat effectiveness. Force March. 1 extra land movement for 1 army can be cancelled by difficult travels. Okay, and then on the bottom it tells you when you'd be able to use, which phase of the game you can use these in. And the top half was what was relevant for that agent phase. So again, these cards are multifunctional. So you have to choose, like, if you want to use it for that bottom event, which could be very useful, or maybe you need it for that, want to use it for that top top agent action. So the eye symbol represents spy. This is one of those games where it's like, well, could they have written spy on it, the top, in addition to the symbol, so you don't have to memorize it? I guess you'd memorize them fast enough. But there is a decent amount of these agent action symbols, so you're definitely not going to memorize them right away. And then you're going to be, therefore, referencing this page in the rulebook. So there's 1, 2... Math is hard, guys. 12, 13 different agent actions. Which I think is... From a mechanic perspective, I think it's cool that they have all these different opportunities to use these agents in the game. But from a aesthetic perspective, I'm not sure if using these icons without just saying what they are is extremely helpful. The events look very different from one to another. This one says, catch enemy. Enemy army forced to give battle can be cancelled by expert evasion. And it looks like there's a lot of back and forth. Like some of these cards are saying they can be cancelled by other cards. Untimely death. Random general of another faction dies. Now that's a fun card. I just remember in the PC game, whenever your general dies from like old age, it's just such a frustration because you need your generals to actually move around your armies, I believe, in the PC game. So they're pretty important. And they can just die from old age all of a sudden. They also can die in battles, so you generally, if you're smart, don't bother fighting with your general unit, but sometimes it's fun to throw in your general unit. Anyway, having a card in the board game that just randomly can kill a general, I think pays great homage to the PC games, and I appreciate that not trend, but I appreciate all the different ways that the board game definitely is trying to emulate the PC game. So you definitely don't have to have played I don't want to make it seem like you have to have played the PC game to appreciate the board game either. I think from what I'm seeing, this would be a fun board game without knowing anything about the PC game, because there's not many, in my opinion, from what I've seen, 4X style ancient era Rome / ancient era Greece board games out there that offer the depth that Rome Total War is offering. So anyway, I won't, there's so many of these action cards, I don't want to spend too much time going all of them in detail. As mentioned, the top has potentially 13 different symbols, which are relevant for that agent phase in the board game, and then the bottom has all these different types of events. So that's the action card deck. Now we'll move on to the next deck here, which looks like actual units that you'll be fighting battles with. So let's bring these over to the microscope here. So here it looks like, it's all of Carthage, all the Carthaginian forces. So we have a Libyan spearman here. Yeah, Sterling, I'll be honest, I feel like I'm in a similar boat. I have not done significant research on the game. It's probably evident by how I'm talking about this game. It was an instant back. Oh, Rome Total War, the board game, like my favorite PC game of all time, now the board game. Obviously, I'm going to have that game in my collection. Do I need another game in my collection? I mean, this is like a quarter of my collection behind me. So, no, of course not, but it's Rome Total War, the board game. Like, how could I not have it? Anyway, so Libyan Spearman, and this part of the game is what really popped out to me right away. When I played the PC game, I just loved how much variety there was in the troops for all the different factions, because a lot of our PC RTS games only had maybe a couple factions with a few different unique units, but Rome Total War was try hard. Like, they wanted unique faction units for each faction, and there were so many factions, and I thought that was just amazing. And so I'm glad that they carried that over into the board game here. So Libyan Spearman, I'm pretty sure the squares represent the dice. So as already talked about, there's all these chunky dice of different colors. So the whites don't look super effective. They have several blank spaces. So this would probably be a weaker unit. A lot of symbology here on the left. I don't know yet what all this means. So maybe S is a special result and has some other unique effect when you roll the S. So that's Libyan Spearman. Obviously, this looks like kind of a core unit. And then this is cool. So upgrade veteran. I don't know how the veteran status would work in the board game, but again, another carryover from the PC game. It's so fun in the PC game to have your army and fight battle after battle with the same army and watch your units become veterans over the course of your PC game strategy campaign. That's just something, I don't know. Hopefully others can understand, the excitement there is with watching your units get better over time by using them in battles. And that's obviously where then I'm pretty sure without reading too far into it, represented here in the board game, where you have the opportunity to upgrade your existing units. So as it says here, it's upgrade only, so you don't pay for a veteran Libyan spearman. I believe after a battle you randomly, maybe, I don't know if it's random or you choose, but some units that survive would get upgraded. So anyway, point being is I'm glad that they carry that into this board game. Citizen Spearman, now this guy has a yellow dice, which I believe is a little more effective than the white die. We can take a quick peek at that. So I'm seeing four symbols and five symbols and only one blank. So yeah, don't know. The skull is probably a good thing when you're rolling it. And this guy costs more, 3 gold. So that's Citizen Spearman upgrade. Okay, so this guy looks pretty awesome actually. The Sacred Band. This guy has the red dice, and the red die absolutely 0 on the blank face, with 0 blank faces. So, but expensive, 4 coins or gold, let's say. I want to say denarii. Simon, if you're watching this, can we say denarii instead of gold? I mean, maybe that's like a Roman, whatchamacallit, influence that denarii, because I don't know, is that the Roman currency, and that it's unfair to say that the currency of all factions is denarii when there wasn't some euro coin back then that everyone was following, and that gold makes more sense. But I think whenever you played any faction in the PC game, it was always denarii. Someone fact check me on that. But if that is the case, and every faction, regardless if you were the Gauls or Greece or Macedonia, was using denarii, then I think it's fair to bring that over into the board game. Just my one side comment. And maybe this has already been discussed in forums, in which case I apologize for ripping off a band-aid. Okay, back to the guys here. Sacred Band, Hispanic, Scutari, veteran of that unit, javelin throwing dude. I know I'm black dice. Yeah, we haven't seen black yet. So black, only 2 sides, S with 1 S, 1 symbols. Yeah, so black is actually the most blanks. Black is 4 blanks, 4 misses. So black is technically, I guess, the weakest dice. But they have that S, the special, and I'm calling it special. I don't actually know if that's the special, and okay, result. If the enemy name, that's, I'm looking at the rulebook here just to see if I can get an exact ruling on what the S result means, because I want to be saying the right thing here. I apologize for this delay, but when you attack with a troop card, you will roll the dice shown on that troop card. The dice you roll must match the dice shown on your card. Okay? If you roll a skull, the opposing troop card is destroyed. Okay. Skull equals critical hit. Makes sense. So skull's really good. If you roll an X, well, the sword arrow symbol, the opposing card's wounded. If you roll an S, okay, let me show it while I'm explaining this. All right, a red. Okay, red skull. If you roll a skull, opponent automatically dies. Opposing troop card is destroyed. If you roll this symbol, it's the enemy troop is wounded, and you turn a card sideways. And if you roll the S, Your unit may use its special ability if it applies. Look at the bottom left of your troop card to see if it has a special ability that applies to the current combat. Some troop cards can automatically destroy specific opposing units, shown in red. If you roll an S when they attack, some cancel the damage done to you by specific opposing units, shown in black. And if you roll a blank, your attack fails, there's no effect. So, there you go. The S, I think, is saying in the case of the Javelin, if they roll an S, they would immediately kill troops of that symbology. So, anyway, and then this Slinger dude doesn't have any kind of effect with an S. So, sometimes an S does mean absolutely nothing. I want to say, then this maybe, the dice here represent are based on the terrain. So this maybe is mountainous terrain, and this is normal terrain. I shouldn't be guessing at that. So what? Let me pause quickly once again just to confirm the Alright, so F. The skull dice to roll when the unit fights in good going, represented by the green grass. The skull dice to roll when the... Okay, so this says... The rules say this is used for when in good going, and then this one is used in difficult terrain. So... So I was kind of right there. Anyway, so we'll quickly go through the rest of these. So Slinger. Then we have some cavalry. So these guys are good against archers. That's what their S immediately kills an archer, which that to me makes a lot of sense. Not exactly sure why some are very red and then some are more of a pink red for the special attacks. Maybe it's wound and kill. I don't know. No, I don't know. But you can see how many units. This is just Carthage, right? Like all these different units. Well, that's another cavalry. And then we have Hispanic cavalry. And then we have the veterans, of course. Then we have war elephants. Obviously, Carthage has to have war elephants. And yeah, they only roll a yellow. But I believe when they hit hard, I assume. Like, I think the... Anyway, I don't want to make up stuff as I go here, but... And then, of course, veteran war elephants. And then you have the siege equipment. So, ballisti, onagers, and then... Oh, then you have your generals. So, I don't exactly know how the... exactly how the mechanics of your general ability come into play when fighting battles. I believe it probably has something to do with initiative and who gets to go first and who sets up first, that sort of thing. But I appreciate that because... Oh, and then you have a historical guys, Barcas. Don't Barca up the wrong tree with those guys. All right. So, again, more elements that were carried over from the PC game. Just for those unfamiliar with the PC game, you... Just like with the regular units that could get upgraded as you won battles, the generals would increase in effectiveness too over the course of a game. So, don't know exactly how generals improve in the board game over time. I assume if you win a battle, there's a chance that your general gets upgraded. But nonetheless, I think that's cool that that's simulated somehow in the board game here. So, the only thing left in the box are the cards for the Greece, or sorry, the Greece, the Greek army, the Roman army, and the barbarians, and And then ships. So I'll quick show some ships, the ship cards. So you can see what those look like. So in the back, some generic ship art. And I think with the ship, since every faction, the production chart for each faction is identical when it comes for Navy. So I believe with Navy ships, it's asymmetric, which I think is also the same for the PC game, if I remember correctly. The Navy ships were not very different from one faction to another, so that's to be expected. So you have ship. Oh, okay. Oh, I see. All right, all right. So actually, there's a lot of ship cards, but they're literally all the same. They all say ship on them. And how you differentiate then the ships is that since they are asymmetric from faction to faction, so they are transports. All, as it says on the card here, all can carry 3 units and a general. But then the type of ship determines what kind of dice you're rolling. So flagships are the big heavy hitters. They're rolling the red. Oh my god, say that 10 times fast. Quinquiriums? Quincreams? Oh my god. 4. The 4 ship is yellow. The trireme is green. Bireme is yellow or white. Oh my gosh. And black transport. So transports still get to maybe do damage. So that's how the ship cards look. And I'm fine with that. I'm glad there's no need to overcomplicate naval warfare. You know, I feel like I got to do some due diligence here and show off. I'm not going to spend as much time, but I will quick show off the barbarian tribe cards. So you have the lowland warriors. And I just want to do a quick check here just to see the cheap. Yeah, okay. So I want to illustrate that the cheap, even though there's different artwork and different names, it's not that they're just reskinning the armies from one faction to another. You can see that the kind of base spearman unit of Carthage is 2 white dice and 1 white dice, whereas the Lowland warriors are only 1 and 1. But then these guys have a special where they can instantly kill foot soldiers on an S, and then the spearmen have their own special, and I'm not exactly sure what that palm symbol means, but it's their own unique special symbol that's different than the Lowland warriors. So I just want to illustrate that, you know, it's not, the armies are asymmetric. The armies are asymmetric, which is like the PC game, but that's represented in the board game too, as you can see. So you have the upgraded lowland warriors. Then you have these highland warriors. I guess there's no middle land warriors. Veteran highland warriors. These guys look cool. The soldiery. Ooh, a naked. I don't know if I have to wear this guy out. The naked guest I would want armor on, personally, if I was fighting a battle, but, you know, I can imagine he's pretty quick. Then you have javelin men. Slinger. This is like the most basic unit ever. White die, no special. Pony riders. Oh, I feel bad for the ponies. Heavy cav. That's cool. Veteran heavy cav. Noble cav. Oh, chariots. Those are awesome. The veteran chariots, immediate, and then the generals. So that's the barbarian army. Then we have Greece. So Greece, of course, start with the hoplites. 2 whites and a black in mountain. So not good at all in that difficult terrain. And that's kind of interesting because it automatically then, if you think about it, when I showed earlier the campaign map, you know, certain regions will, you know, are more mountainous than others, so you know then, well, these guys, the basic units of Greece are not going to be very effective in the difficult terrain, so if you're going to fight a Greek army, try to do it in a mountain region, for example. And it'll be interesting to see how those decisions come to fruition in the board game. When playing the board game, I should say. But it would make sense to me that's the type of strategic thinking that's going to come into play, which in the PC game probably wasn't so important. I never really thought about the terrain that I was fighting in. Maybe I should have. Maybe that was part of the reason why I had to exit games middle battles and then restart them from my save right before I fought, because I wasn't taking into account the terrain of what my units were good at fighting in. But anyway, I think that's cool. That's something to think about in the board game. Phalangites. If anything, this game is fantastic for phonetics. Man, I am butchering a lot of words. So, and then you got the veterans of those guys. The Peltastoi. Peltastoi. Illyrian infantry. Oh, yeah, okay. Archers. Javelin men again. Rhodian slingers. Thracian cav. Thessian cav. Veteran Thessian cav companions. Veteran companions. They also have their war elephants. Then siege equipment. Media, and then the generals. I bet they should have probably named generals as well. Oh, cool. Yeah, Philip of Macedon. Oh, did I? Yeah, no, yeah. Because then there's Alexander the Great. Now, one of the expansions to the game is an Alexander the Great expansion. I'm not sure. I feel kind of dumb not knowing this off the top of my head. Why there's an expansion for Alexander the Great, but then he's also still included in the core game. But I know with that Alexander the Great expansion, you get you get a bigger map, you get more map space to play with, and then additional factions and stuff like that. So anyway, I want to point that out. Okay, so that was the Greek army. Then we have Rome. So of course you got the bread and butter Republican Legionnaires. And interestingly, they're 3 coins right off the bat. So more of an expensive army to fund if you're the Rome faction, which I think probably is similar to then the PC game, that technically the Roman units are more expensive, but they're harder hitting. So I'm not going to. So I think that's cool. That's then carried over into the board game here. A lot of those guys in the veterans of those. Then Italian infantry. Okay, well that seems like maybe more the basic troop that you would start with as Rome. Very vanilla, but just 2 coins, 2 gold. And then you got the vets of those guys. Then you have the Allied cavalry. So my thing was cavalry when I played the PC game. I would just have an army of cavalry and just charge at whatever enemy I was fighting. Obviously, with the Greek soldier, whenever I was fighting like a spear army like the Greek, then I think I would just send 1 unit in the front and then try to send everything else around the back. But anyway, that was my thing. Velites? Gosh, I feel so dumb pronouncing these things. Velites. And then Scorpio. And then you got the generals for Rome. Mediocre, competent. Then you have Scipio Africanus, Marcus Licinius Crassus, and Gaius Julius Caesar. So and if you didn't notice, there are these abilities on the generals. So clearly those have meaning when playing the game. I don't know off the top of my head yet exactly how those get utilized in the actual board game. So one thing I'm blanking on is I thought maybe there was multiple Rome factions, because just like in the PC game, there wasn't technically just a single Rome faction. There was multiple. And at least what I got, what came in my box, was then this, which also looks like a Rome faction, but also not the Rome faction I just talked about. So I'm not exactly sure if this is a different player faction or if you can choose one or the other. Because these guys are, yeah, they have the Imperial Legionnaires, whereas the other faction was the Republican Legionnaires. So the Legionnaires are different here for this Rome faction. Then you have vets of those. And then Imperial Legionary Cavalry. Veteran of that. Imperial Auxiliary. Veteran Imperial Auxiliary. Ooh, there we go. I was going to say, the Praetorians. I remember those guys are really good. Ooh, Imperial Auxiliary Archers. That's cool. Imperial Praetorian Cavalry. Yikes, those guys. They don't roll super hard, just a yellow and white, but I imagine they must be still effective. And then the more siege equipment. But this faction doesn't have any generals, so... Oh, and then the symbol and the... Oh, interesting. Yeah, so I guess the upper left symbol is different. I don't know, again, what that's all about. If that was just extra, if that was something just extra that came in my prototype copy, so I apologize, guys, for not knowing that off the top of my head. Then there's this last faction of cards, which is M. And I am going to assume M is mercenaries. Unless it's Macedonia. Simon may have explained to me that I got was getting some extra Rome faction, and I didn't realize it. Yeah, that's... I'm looking at the rulebook right now just to see if this gets explained. And I'm not seeing anything immediately. Explaining the two different Rome factions. I'm also not immediately seeing anything about mercenaries. Well, let me look through the cards first. So we have Balearic Slingers, Cretan Archers, Hispanic Scutari, Hispanic Cavalry, Egyptian Archers. Okay, yeah, this has to be then the mercenary units. Now, in the PC game of Rome Total War, mercenary units were very critical because oftentimes you'd find yourself going on a war campaign deep into enemy territory and you're like, geez, I'm running low on units and my home base is way back wherever, and for me to get more units would take forever to make them myself. So then you buy up a bunch of mercenaries that were near your area, and they cost a lot of money, I remember, but they're troops. So carrying that over into the board game is awesome to see, and curious how exactly it gets implemented in the board game. Obviously, the rules explain how you can buy mercenary units. I haven't researched that part yet, but nonetheless, fun to see that you can purchase mercenaries, because that was always, I don't know, I just remember playing the PC game and always having a fun time. Ooh, that's a new unit. I've never, like Pokemon, right? Like you kind of collect all the mercenary units, only it was Rome Total War. Ooh, War Dogs. See, now that's interesting. I remember War Dogs, I think, being a Roman unit, and it looks like in the board game it was decided to just be a mercenary unit. But oh, and then the incendiary pigs. No one tell PETA about this board game, otherwise they might not be very happy about the incendiary pigs. Nonetheless, and it's cool how this is like not a unit per se. It says play with a foot unit to add a dice versus that type of unit, or a yellow versus that type of unit, or a green versus other. So this is kind of like a card you equip. Same with this Flaming Log card. So, oh, maybe that's why the War Dogs are like, yeah, War Dogs are the same. So it's not really a unit per se. So that was, and then we have one small deck remaining of cards, and these ones are just a bunch of arrows or just an arrow on one side, and then on the other side number 3, number all the way up to 12, and let's see if I can get the right terminology for those cards. Those are the initiative cards. So so there you go. That's that is the complete contents of the prototype copy of Rome Total War. And I don't know if this is going to be the final insert that comes with the board game, the production copy, I should say, of the board game. But it's an insert that looks pretty effective in terms of having a slot for all the main tokens, and then slots for all the cards. So it's better than absolutely no insert. But I don't want to get too caught up on the insert, just in case that's subject to change as well for the production copy. And I think that's essentially the main things I wanted to cover then in this live unboxing of Rome Total War. The one other thing that I had heavily myself heavily got excited about is the solo mode that's available for the game. I believe it comes with the core game itself, and I think for this prototype that I received, the contents for the solo mode were not included. It mentions here in the rulebook content section that there's 12 initiative cards and 43 solo play cards not pictured. So I believe that is maybe still being in development, so maybe there's not physical components yet to be made available as even a prototype yet. Try to confirm that with Simon, the designer, after this. But definitely stay tuned for this project. It's hopefully you're excited about it based on what you saw. And once again, I don't know how many times I've now said it, but this was a prototype copy. So if anything looked a little disappointing to you, keep in mind it was a prototype. But at the same time, I thought everything actually looks very, I don't know, I'm happy with it, with everything I saw. These dice look like they'll be fun to roll around, and definitely hope to actually get this played with the others from the Talking Cardboard crew, hopefully sooner than later. So Corey and John, if you're watching right now, it's past your bedtime, but if you're staying up late and watching this right now, let's get this to the table so we can show some footage of the game in action for everyone. And I want to say thank you so much to the publishing company PSC Games and Simon, or CCC Games. Maybe it's changed publishing company, I believe. So I apologize if it's changed now to different publisher, but it was originally CCC, I think, PSC. And maybe now it's the CCC company. Regardless, I want to thank the company for providing me this prototype copy to look at and show you guys, because this was a lot of fun to do. I hope to do this more often in the future for other games. And what else was I going to say? Well, definitely, if you enjoyed watching me talk about Rome Total War, look at our other content. As I already mentioned at the beginning, I have this, I'm trying to QR code link that will show you all of our links. Is a link tree which shows you the links for all of our different sites, such as YouTube, TikTok, podcasts, and Twitter. And then right here we have the URL for our Talking Cardboard YouTube channel. And there you have it. Thanks so much for tuning in and watching. If you have any other questions, feel free to send them our way via our YouTube channel and comment to the recording of this video, and I'd be happy to answer them for you or try to get an answer for you from the designer. And this is what I wanted to also add is this game, I think, is taking a little longer to actually be developed due to a lot of challenges that have gone on, personal challenges that have gone on, unforeseen personal challenges that have gone on with the designer. And I really commend his passion for this project. Like, this is a game, like I said, is hopefully, I would imagine, just like myself, is a really cool experience to see a PC game that was one of the best titles when it came out in 2004 to now be honored with a full-scale epic grand strategy board game. And I know the designers really wants to do their best to respect the original, intellectual property in the Total War franchise. So I really hope this game does well, succeeds. be one of those backers that have already add yourself to one of the pledges that have already backed the game if this looks exciting to you. And I hope maybe in the future we'll see other, and I have no reason to believe this will happen, but it would be awesome to see other games in the franchise, Total War franchise, maybe Shogun, maybe Medieval, maybe the 1750, the Empire Total, maybe it's called Empire Total War is the one that I was blanking on. So, with that said, thanks so much for watching. I'm Nick from Talking Cardboard, and I hope to see you guys again soon.